Tommy Reynolds has his gun out. He's pointing the gun, and all of a sudden, I see this woman.
They say it's on every single station. They're saying that Daddy died.
I don't think his life ended at Holston's that night.
If it wasn't for Sopranos, I don't know if I'd be here,
My first thing, and I'm with these legends, De Niro.
One night I jumped out of a car doing 60 miles an hour because I was addicted.
Salute, Mob 2.
Salute, MobTube. I hope everybody is doing well today. So as you guys know, I'm having a very special guest on tonight. I couldn't be more excited about this. This is a couple of months in the making here. And, I couldn't be happier about who my guest is today. So for any of you who know, he was the star of Centigrade. He was one of the stars of Jersey Boys. He was in The Sopranos, and he starred in one of my favorite movies, The Wannabe, along with many others. So everybody, please welcome Vincent Piazza. I'm sorry, I just did it.
You did it. You did it. You fell into the trap.
I did.
How's it going, man?
Good. Listen, I know I said this before the interview, but I just wanted to thank you again. This is a great opportunity for me, and it seems like you don't do a lot of interviews, so this is rare, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't in quite some time. When I was busier a few years back, I was given more, but yeah, pandemic quiet things down a little bit.
Understood. Well, I'd like to start from the beginning. Could you tell us a little bit about, where you grew up, your upbringing?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Maspeth, Queens, born and raised. Then I left for college, wanted to play hockey. So I went to play Villanova for a year, got banged up pretty good skating there, came back, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, went into finance for a few years, found that wasn't kind of the direction I wanted to go into, and I stepped into acting and just fell in love with it, the process and the people and, kind of immersing myself in that work.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually from Glendale, so I thought you were from Middle Village, but.
Well, it's right on the border. I mean, we're separated by Elliott Avenue, was the only real dividing line. But yeah, Maspeth, Middle Village, very close.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit about, now you got started in acting through theater, right?
Yeah. I, the one great thing about kind of going into the working world and getting a sense of, when you're in your early 20s, late teens, you're getting a sense of how competitive the world can be and, what you need to do. So it gave me a bit of a business head. So when I stepped into acting, I was like, look, if it were that easy, everyone would be doing it. So I realized that there's something that, a real craft that needs to be learned. And luckily, through a series of coincidences, I met my acting coach, who I worked with for about 20 years. And she said, look, if you want to be in this for the long haul, if you really love doing what you're doing, then you need to learn the classics. You need to get on stage. And that was how I came up. And a lot of my early work was just like hustling. No one would see non-union, uncredited actors. So I was just papering. I was getting backstage and I was cutting out the things that I thought I was right for, and then just doing mailings, sliding stuff under doors, kind of burning out the subway all over the city, trying to just, make inroads. And then, you start building credits, you start doing these kind of off Broadway shows and staged readings and all the while, I'm developing the way of working through scene study with my coach, getting up and working in front of people, which is a hard thing to kind of shed all that anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I a lot of the people I've interviewed, they were noticed, they were recognized. Like Robert Eiler, they were seen, and and he was, they thought right off the bat he could play Tony's son in The Sopranos, people like that. But it sounds like you didn't have it that way. You had a little bit more of a struggle.
Oh, I mean, everyone has their struggle. I can't say whether it was more or less than anyone, but it was definitely a struggle, and it's still a struggle. Like that's, I guess, the one big thing that maybe it existed at a certain point in time when you reach a certain strata of the business that you feel like, okay, now things will start to come to me. You've proven through a body of work that you're reliable. You can be part of a story. You're easy to work with. That then it'll kind of get work, but that's not really the case. The hustle never ends. You got to really keep pounding on the door. You have to really try and reinvent yourself as much as possible.
So even till this day, I mean, we'll get to this a little bit later also, but I assume it's you're constantly auditioning and doing things like that to keep yourself working.
Oh man, like the auditioning never stops, and you have to love it. It's like Stockholm syndrome. You have to fall in love with your kidnapper, to get by, I guess. But yeah, it's like you just have to go in with a good spirit every time, no matter how many no's you get punched in the face with. You just got to keep going. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear, because I think a lot of people kind of have the feeling like certain actors, it's just a matter of sitting at home and roles are handed to you.
It's bullshit.
It's not that easy, huh?
Bullshit. It's bullshit. I mean, even people that are like in the top of the business, like if you look at like what is considered A-list by today's standards, those guys are probably second or third picks for those roles because a competitor was who they really wanted. And it comes down to so many variables that, like, if you try and think about it, you will, or I would, spiral into a deep depression and probably never leave my house. So you can't worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess not. Drive you crazy otherwise.
Oh,
so
sure,
how did you make the transition from theater to television? What were your first roles as far as TV?
What's funny is I told this story a few times with friends, but like I was doing a production of Much Ado About Nothing in Central Park. It was kind of one of these roaming troupes who were putting up the show, and people could come watch it and follow the actors as you tell the story. And my family came, and they're like, "Wow, that's nice," And then I got a job getting hit in the head with a 2x4 and killed in the first 5 minutes of Law and Order: Criminal Intent, and my family was like gobsmacked. But that was probably like the first time that I was on like a network TV thing. I had done like student films, short films. You start to kind of get comfortable in front of the camera and realize that even though it's the same work, there's a different relationship with how you need to kind of project and, with the camera being there, what you need to give and how you can like kind of lay off the gas a little bit.
Yeah. So I have your filmography here, and there's actually you have a pretty lengthy filmography. It's not like you've only been in a few things. Let me see what I have here. I have Color of a Doubt, Stephanie Daly, The Dawn, Rocket Science, Goodbye Baby, Tie a Yellow Ribbon, Assassination of a High School President, Polish Bar, Three Nights in the Desert. So what would you say was your first, important role? I'm sure they were all important, but as far as kind of launching you into a bigger career?
I would say probably Rocket Science. And the interesting thing with a filmography is like certain credits are out of order. It's just like when they came out, but not necessarily when they were made. So for instance, Rocket Science, in the list, if you're reading it in order, came out after Stephanie Daly, but I got Stephanie Daly because of Rocket Science.
Okay.
It started building momentum. But Rocket Science was definitely like a jumping off point for me with like film and working. It was a joint venture between HBO and I forget which studio, but it's called Picture House. They had made a lot of indie films that were going out, like larger indie films. And it was a movie where I was finally like, had a substantial role in it. I got to work with really great people. Director Jeff Blitz, producer was Maud Nadler. She was coming off a string of hits. She had done American Splendor, Maria Full of Grace, all these movies. And it was a coming of age comedy. And there's a really kind of great story behind it, because at this point, I mean, I was just getting by, and I didn't have an agent or a manager. I was really kind of eager to meet people. So I was paying $35 to audition for casting directors. And I paid $35 to audition for this woman named Nadia Lube. And I did a monologue. I think it might have been from like Danny and the Deep Blue Sea or something like that. And she liked it. And she said she was going to call me, but so had other people. And I didn't think it would translate into anything. She did call me and she said, "Hey, I'm casting this movie, Rocket Science. Would you want to read for this role, playing the big brother?" So I was like, cool. So I put it together and made some choices. And I guess they were pretty aggressive choices. And it got me into the mix for it. And I had this kind of strange lisp that I added into it. And the director Jeff Blitz flew to like kind of the final casting for this movie. And I meet him at like this place, Mangianero's on, I think it's like 9th or 10th Avenue in Hell's Kitchen. And we meet up, he shakes my hand. He's like, "So I flew over here to see if you made a really great choice or if you were really out of your fucking mind." And luckily he felt it was a good choice and that I'm not out of my fucking mind. But I ended up getting the role, and that one kind of, I was able to like get money to get my teeth fixed, stuff like that. It was that kind of a job where it's like, oh, I can get my teeth fixed. I can get health insurance. And I was part of this cool ensemble. It was Reese Thompson played my little brother. He was the lead. Anna Kendrick, Aaron Yu, Nick DeGusto, and Jeff Blitz was directing. And yeah, it was a blast. We shot that in Baltimore in like 2005. So that was a big jumping off movie for me.
So that kind of made it a little bit easier as far as you being recognized and them knowing who you are finally, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it just got me an agent. It got me going. I mean, I got that role, then I got Stephanie Daly, and then what's interesting is Stephanie Daly premiered at Sundance, again, still with really no representation. Got me. Stephanie Daly got into Sundance, so I flew myself out there, and I met my agent, who I'm still with. Who met me at the screening of that. And then she, at that point she found out Rocket Science was in the can and being edited. So, and then, for the last, I guess, 16 years or so, I've been with the same agent.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So you had a lot of great roles throughout your acting career. Now there's obviously some that stand out. I don't know what you'd consider your biggest role. I'm assuming it would be Jersey Boys or Boardwalk Empire. Which one do you think would be the most significant?
I have to say Boardwalk, because without Boardwalk, I wouldn't have got Jersey Boys. It's always like a series of connecting the dots. I think I got a little notoriety from Boardwalk that kind of led to getting Jersey Boys. And thank God, the patron saint of Terrence Winter, who allowed me to go and shoot Jersey Boys during the 4th season of Boardwalk. So he trimmed back my work in the 4th season just to get me to do it. So that was like a huge break to be able to kind of burn the candle at both ends for a season.
I bet. I can't even imagine. I watched Jersey Boys for the first time yesterday. And I got to tell you, phenomenal movie. Phenomenal. Excellent. The cast, and your role, that's what one of the main things I wanted to ask you about today. You played Tommy DeVito, which I think, my opinion, in the 4 seasons was the most complex character, I guess you could say.
Well, I think they all had their lives, right? I just think that Tommy probably had a foot in each door that made him maybe a little more complex. The other guys were pure musicians. I mean, Frankie Valli, of course, they were all had like a little element of gangland in them in Jersey, but Tommy was really kind of the engine of getting these guys out of the street and into the recording studio. So it was a fun role. I always just felt like I was driving a lot of the tension, driving the actions throughout the script. So I was really, really lucky to get that role. It was a fun role.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable, and I thought about the work that's why it's actually it's crazy to hear that you were shooting Boardwalk Empire during that time, because I mean, you had to put. I'm assuming you researched a lot into Tommy's life before you took the role.
Yeah, I wish I could say that I had more time to. I went to see the musical. I got to read, some publicly available stuff. I didn't speak to Mr. DeVito when he was alive and before the production. I kind of, especially playing Luciano, I had this time to research the shit out of this guy and just like get the FBI files and like kind of read other mobster biographies about their relationship to Luciano. And then suddenly I'm kind of thrust into this very scary situation, having to play another historical figure in a very short period of time. But it's a job where it's like, I'm going to get to play Tommy DeVito and get directed by Clint Eastwood. Like I'm in, like, hella high water. I gotta trust myself and trust the hands I'm in and just go for it. And so that was kind of the situation. What's interesting about the Jersey Boys, how that came to be, is I think it was during season 3 of Boardwalk when I auditioned, and the director at the time was Jon Favreau. And I went in to meet Favreau. He was going away from the musical. He had a new script, or Warner Brothers had a new script written that was going to be a bit of a departure, more of a biopic. And I met him, and we hit it off. I sang a few bars of I forget which song, which I'm not a trained singer, but I was just trying to kind of like, squeak by. And that was enough. And I got a word from my agents, like, great news. You're going to play Tommy DeVito in the movie with Jon Favreau. And I was like, this is amazing. This is crazy. And it would have worked with the schedule when I wasn't shooting Boardwalk, only to find out several weeks later, it's like, yeah, forget it. The movie's off. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, they put it in turnaround. They're not making it. There was some kind of issue with the studio. And I was like, wow, as quick as it came to me is as quick as it was taken away, which is pretty much the business. And so I just kind of put it aside for a while. Months later, while I'm shooting season 4, or maybe just about to start, my agent calls me and she's like, good news and bad news about Jersey Boys. What do you want to hear first? I said, the good news. And she goes, the good news is they're making the movie with Clint Eastwood directing. And I was like, that's fucking amazing. What's the bad news? She goes, the bad news is he wants only the guys from the musical. So you got to be a trained singer, dancer, and everything else. So I was like, all right, well, fine. So I made a tape, kind of pretty much doing the same thing I did in the first tape, sent it off, and then get a call several weeks later. It's like, you're playing Tommy DeVito. And I was like, you got to call him back. I don't sing, dance, or play the guitar. You got to let him know I can't go there and make an asshole out of myself. So she called up Malpaso, which is the production company, Clint's production company, and was like, full disclosure. And they said, well, he's got 40 days. So just tell him to do the work. And I got a guitar coach, and I got they had to work on choreography, and I got a voice coach. And then plus that, the acting thing. That was 40 days to prepare, and then 40 days of shooting. And that was it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you that as well. I mean, it's a lot of work. It was a challenging role because of all that. I mean, were you a natural with the singing and dancing, or did it really take some?
It took some doing. I mean, I got to say, like, I definitely I was happy. One of the things I never realized is that like singing was an Olympic sport back in like ancient Greece. So like if you're athletic, you got a puncher's chance at like, delivering and hitting notes. Now fitting in a 4-part harmony, that's a whole other monster, like trying to like hold a note, stay in a range. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm, that I could, it would be crazy of me to say, yeah, I learned to sing in 40 days. I learned to sing well enough to fake it on camera and then sing in a studio and carry the notes, probably with a little bumps from auto-tune here and there. And
Yeah.
it made its way into the movie.
Yeah, that's great. I was watching it yesterday, and first of all, I love the music. I was raised on that type of music, but I was thinking to myself, do you, when you're playing a role like that, do you almost begin to feel like when you guys were reenacting Ed Sullivan and American Bandstand, and you were doing the concert scenes and stuff? Do you start to get a feel for what it's like to have been in like a legendary rock doo-wop group like that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When you have when you fill out a space with a bunch of people that are, they call action and they're paid to go absolutely crazy over you. You kind of get a sense of like, oh my God, imagine if they're paying. Like, imagine if that's reversed, and it's like people will give their last $100 to just go see you and, whatever, be in your presence and listen to your music or whatever it is. I mean, the power of music and being a rock star or in a pop group or whatever is like, I mean, that's that's other level stuff. So it was fun just to pretend for a month and a half.
Yeah, how many people get to know what it's like to really be a rock star, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be a fun role. Now, Tommy DeVito passed away, unfortunately, on September, I believe it was 21st of 2020. He was 92 years old. I know you already said this, but I know you said you never spoke to him, but did you ever get word or anything about what he thought of your performance?
Yeah, well, we actually spoke after the fact. We had a brief phone call, and he reached out to me through someone, and then we had a brief phone call, and he was really kind, and he was happy. He seemed really happy with the work, and we were also talking about meeting at one point, but it just never worked out, and we didn't get together, unfortunately. But it really it made me feel good to hear that he was happy with the work.
Yeah, I'm sure that was important to you. And I gotta say, one of the funniest parts at the end, to seeing Christopher Walken dancing during that performance, that was beautiful. What a scene! I was cracking up because that's another thing. What's it like working with him? I mean, I'm sure you had some time with Walken, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we knew about the dance number that they wanted to put together for the end of the movie, and I don't think he was initially scheduled to do it. And I remember we were sitting on stage one day, and we were all trying in our own subtle ways to like kind of tug on his sleeve to be like, we're going to do this dance number at the end. It'd be great if you were in it. And I remember him saying, we're sitting in like this kind of silence for a while, and he goes, I don't know why I'm in this movie. He's like, and why they make me a gangster, an Italian gangster. He goes, I'm Swedish. And I was like, well, I guess, Chris, I think you're really good at it. And he's like, maybe they brought me in because I could dance. And I was like, you can dance and you should dance. And, we started talking a little bit about the end number, and he kind of nodded and, went his way. And then we got into the scene. But working with him was like one of those moments where you have someone who's so like, you watch so many movies and so many performances of them, and then suddenly you're like standing a foot apart from someone and he's talking to you, and it was so Walken. It was amazing. I remember in the first scene I shot with him, we're in the office, and basically I'm there. I had the guys that were trying to shake down Frankie kind of called in front of Jip. So Chris Walken has these guys there, and I said I want to be like a kind of a bit of a bubblegum gangster. And at the time I had asked for like ice cream, if I could just be eating ice cream while he's like telling these guys off. And they didn't have ice cream on the day, but they gave me this wad of bubblegum. So I remember I'm sitting there getting ready to do the scene, and I'm blowing these big bubbles, and Chris is just kind of looking at me. And, we kind of set up our stuff, and I start the scene, and while he's lecturing them, I'm blowing big bubbles, pop. And he just kind of like, you see him wince in the take, and he keeps going, and then I blow another big bubble, fucking pop. And then finally he looks at me and like gets really stern. He goes, "Tommy, the fucking gum." And I was like, "Oh my God, you just made my life." And I ad-libbed whatever. I took it out and went, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Jip." And I put it behind my ear, this like big wad of gum. It never made it into the movie, but that was like the first take of us working together. And then I just kept doing the bubble popping that kind of in between his stuff.
That's funny. He
yeah.
referred to you as Tommy too. That's
Yeah. No, he stayed right in character. He's like, "Tommy, the fucking gum." But that was probably like the first real like dead on walking experience that I had, and it was beautiful. And he was such a pro and so great to work with, and it seemed like we had some fun.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend. I mean, who doesn't love walking, honestly?
Seriously.
You ever look at him and think, I need more cowbell?
I hadn't dared bring it up. I did not dare bring it up. But I think we may have joked around about that on set, just around. Like, you know what the scene means? Or then just leave it at that.
Yeah. Somebody's asking about, and I wanted to talk to you about this too. I kind of skipped over it, but I was going to leave, some of the, more mob related roles for the end. But The Sopranos, you were in that as well.
Yeah. It was.
That's another one. How did you?
I never ended. So the crazy thing, it's crazy because throughout all my theater stuff and the student films and the indie films and all the stuff you do coming up, I never once played an Italian American. Everything was kind of like some kind of bent on something else. And so I'm a huge fan of The Sopranos, and I auditioned for that show, a bunch of times and never got anything, but playing all the roles that like you would expect an Italian American to get. And then finally this one role comes along who's like a Colombian Irish socialite. And that's the role I get. And I just thought it was very funny that I was like, wow, I'm just not meant to play any Italian American roles, and that's fine. But that's that came along probably months after Rocket Science and stuff came, and maybe a year or two after Rocket Science and stuff came out. But I started putting together the TV credits, Law and Orders and Rescue Me. I had like a half a season arc on that, and then Sopranos with the 3-episode situation.
Yeah, even 3 episodes though. I mean, I'm sure that's something that's cherished on your resume, right? I mean, being part of such a legendary show with so many legends working on it.
Well, that's the crazy thing is, so Rob Eiler and I, we worked on that. He was so fucking good to me. We got to work on that. So we hung out. We shot the first bit of shooting we did was at Marquee at the nightclub. And that was from like the Johnny Cake stuff, that episode. Yeah. And then as a fan, the next time, and I didn't know I was going to be back on the show. I thought it was like kind of a 1-episode deal, and they brought me back on. And I was in the living room. And like, as soon as I walked onto set, I was just like, oh my God. I don't know how many times I saw this fucking kitchen. Here's the kitchen counter, and I totally geeked out quietly. But I had to kind of geek out and get that out of my system. And then, and it was one of the great moments I had, like kind of crossing through the TV screen into a world that I was such a fan of.
Yeah, it's got to be a trip. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. But then again, I kind of feel a little bit of what you're talking about just by doing these interviews. You guys, it's unbelievable for me, who is relatively a nobody, watching you do that brilliant performance on Jersey Boys, and now to be sitting here with you. So I couldn't even imagine what it was like for you to be such a huge fan of The Sopranos and then walk into, of all places, that kitchen in that living room, right? What was it like just being in James Gandolfini's presence and working with him?
Oh man, another guy. Like, I've so spoiled in my career so far, is I've been able to work with such good people. Like the first day I had to work with him, we only had like a 1-line exchange through the stuff that I'd done on the show. He like walks in, and, I got the impression he doesn't like my character and my influence on his son. But I wanted to get comfortable because I'm supposed to be playing video games. So I'm like, while they're lighting the shot, I was like, I don't need to stand and I just kind of want to sit here and play video games. And he just comes over and he parks himself next to me and he's looking at the video games. And he's like, any of these any good? And we just started talking about it. He was talking about his son, how his son's into video games and whatnot. And it was, again, just a really warm presence was my experience with him. Again, what an actor and what a tragedy to lose someone that, seemingly had so much more to give.
I know it's a shame. I can't even imagine, what other kind of roles and films we would have seen from James if he would have stayed with us longer. It's really a tragedy. But when we spoke on the phone, me and you, I kind of explained to you what this channel's about, and I'm quite sure you've figured out that it's mostly about mob-related stuff, and I love interviewing great Italian-American actors from the movies and the TV shows related to that subject. And I got to tell you, one of my favorite roles of yours was The Wannabe.
Thank you.
Was, basically, based on the lives of Thomas and Rosemary Uva.
Yeah.
And I thought that was another one where you were brilliant. And I'm assuming, that had to be a huge role for you as well, right?
Well, what's interesting about that one is I kind of made my own lunch with that. And it's interesting that it all happened. It was like I had this hot 2-year period where I was just had all this momentum, with Boardwalk. But through the Boardwalk process, I was asked to do a reading. I think this might have been like season 1 of Boardwalk. And there was a script sent to me called The Wannabe. Nick Sandow had written, and they were doing a stage reading of it. And they said they're going after an A-list actor to play Tommy, but would I be comfortable sitting in to read the script for investors and the producers of the project? And I said, sure, no problem. So I read it aloud, and Nick and I spoke at the reading, and he's like, you really know these guys. And, you grew up in Queens, you understand the world. I said, yeah. He's like, man, it's a shame. If I were directing, if I had my way, I'd love for you to do it. But, they have kind of bigger ambitions for the project. And I said, no problem. Through a series of coincidences, the first one being Nick gets cast on Boardwalk and he's playing Waxy Gordon. So I see him on set and I'm like, hey, man, great to see you again. How did it go with your movie? Did you ever get it made? He's like, no, man, I was a total bust. I'm getting the rights back and I'll see what I'm going to do. I'm like, well, why don't we make it together? Like, why don't we, work something out? So he's like, yeah, let's talk about it. So we started meeting up. We were going through the script. We gone through a number of revisions, probably over like a year and a half, kind of turning it into a proper indie movie instead of like a $20-30 million budget. Try and get it down to like a $2 million budget, make it a little more psychological as opposed to like car chases and shoot 'em up scenes. And then through Patricia Arquette is rep by my agency, so wrote her a letter, sent her the script. She loved it. We spoke to work together on it, and that was like a huge home run for us. And then I brought it over to Marty Scorsese at one of the table reads, and I didn't bring it to him. I brought the idea to him. I said, I'm working on this little movie. It's an indie, but I just wanted to make you aware of it. Would you have time to read it? He's like, yeah, of course. Send it to my office. I'd love to read it. The next table read, he shows up. He's like, I read it. I love it. I want to come on as an executive producer and help you out. I was like, this is incredible. And then through my lawyer, he knew some investors, and then we started putting it all together. And what's crazy is, so Nick gets cast as Waxy. We start putting the project together. A year later, Patricia gets cast on Boardwalk by sheer coincidence. And we wanted like the mobster gangster to be more like, because it's a film about identity, is I wanted a real, Nick and we agreed that like a real Sicilian. So I was in love with this movie called The Golden Door, which if you haven't seen it, please watch this movie. It's the ultimate Sicilian kind of immigration story. It was in Cannes. It's just a fucking amazing movie. I've watched it over and over again. And the lead guy in that, I was like, man, that actor's just the real deal, like the pith and marrow of this guy from Sicily. And he's amazing. And he would be great if he could play it, but he's in Sicily. So I'm kind of, you know, speaking this way to my dialect coach on Boardwalk, and she goes, "Ah, Vincenzo, you mean Vincenzo Amato?" She goes, "He's a friend of mine. He lives in Brooklyn now." I said, "Are you kidding me? I got to meet this guy." So Nick and I meet Vincenzo for lunch. He reads the script. He's like, "I love it. It's perfect." So, and then months later, by coincidence, he's cast on Boardwalk. So we actually end up having a scene with me, Nick, Patricia, and Vincenzo on Boardwalk before we even shoot Wannabe, and we've all agreed to do the movie. So it was this kind of crazy kismet of like, can you all believe this? And it was a really nice feeling. And then I went off to shoot Jersey Boys, and I had 2 weeks to get ready to shoot Wannabe. So I ended up I had to lose like 17 pounds in 2 weeks to get down to like weight that I felt was right for to play Tommy in that movie, Thomas, and that was like another big kind of thing to do. So anyway, it was like being on a very fast treadmill for that year.
So you were busy, to say the least. You had a lot
it was,
going on.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
So you had to turn around and put that weight right back on then?
Yeah. So what's interesting is I lost from Boardwalk. I was like, I hate the numbers. I was at a certain weight for Boardwalk, went down a little bit for Jersey Boys, and then I had 2 weeks to get down. I got down to like 148, where it was like my back ribs were showing. I just wanted to be kind of slight, that I felt like this guy's aspirations of being in the mafia is even reduced by his physical strength and also having a crack addiction, just like to make it the most unlikely of guys who would want to be in the mob. So I wanted to make him incredibly slight. So I did that. And then I had some time, which I thoroughly enjoyed, just eating my face off to get ready for season 5 of Boardwalk. But I had months to get the weight back on, which was a pleasure.
I've never been in a situation where I was trying to put weight on, but I would assume it's pretty enjoyable. I can think of all kinds of things I would eat. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
especially for an Italian. Especially for Italians.
Oh, man, pasta, 3rd time this week, 4th. Go ahead, let's do it. Yeah, it was great.
Oh. I wish. I'm in the process of losing weight right now, so unfortunately, my favorite foods are missed greatly. Every now and then I cheat and I have some ziti or something, but not nearly as much as I used to.
Yeah, listen, man, it gets harder and harder these days to get it off, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Like I said, it's one of my favorite movies to want to be. I also Rob the Mob, which was basically the same story. I like them both. But for anybody who hasn't seen The Wannabe, I'm sure most of my audience knows the story of Thomas and Rosemary Uva, but definitely check that out. It's a great movie, and Vincent, you did a phenomenal job once again.
Thank you. Yeah, it was that was a kind of a harrowing story, and it was a lot of love that went into that, and Patricia was a dream to work with, and she went for it and went there, and it was really kind of a special story, especially growing up in Queens and being vaguely familiar with the story. But we wanted to take some poetic license with that couple, and or adding in the Curtis Lewa stuff and things like that. Those choices that were made. But yeah, it was. I'm glad you liked it.
Oh yeah, and of course, I was gonna say, the fact that you got to work with Scorsese, and then Patricia Arquette. I just got done watching The Act. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I just watched her in Severance, and before that, did you see Escape from Dannemora?
No, I didn't. I'm going to.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, this is one of the high marks of TV in the last few years. Escape from Dannemora is like. And what's interesting is I wasn't going to watch it because I felt like the newspapers had saturated so much of the story about the guys who escaped that I was like, I kind of know the story, but the performances and Ben Stiller as a director just blew my mind. Like it's
really?
Seriously one of the best things on TV. I can't recommend it enough. And wait till you see what she does with this character with Tilly. In this story, she blew me away. It was really, really amazing work.
I'll watch that. Yeah, I've seen it. You know, I skipped through Amazon Prime and I've seen it. I was the same way as you. I was like, oh, what am I going to learn from this? But now that you told me that, I'll watch it. And yeah, Patricia, I mean, her performance in the act was unbelievable. I mean, that series by itself was amazing.
Was that where she had the daughter who she was making her sick, or she was
Yeah,
like
she
had some kind? Oh man, yeah,
Munchausen by
yeah,
proxy, yeah. And it's a true story.
yeah.
And what she did to that little girl is just it's pure evil and it's tragic. But
No.
what a job she did in that. And Joey King playing the daughter was
Mm.
also phenomenal.
All right. Well, I'm going to
So
take that recommendation. I'm going to check it out.
yeah, you should definitely. I think it's 6 or 8 episodes, but definitely worth watching.
Cool.
So thank you, JC. He said solid interview. This is a friend. Thank you. So if I don't get to Boardwalk Empire, my audience is going to turn on me. Like I said, this is,
Yeah,
mainly a
I get it.
mob related channel. So this one, I can't even begin to put into words how impressed I was with your performance as Lucky Luciano. I mean, when I watched that, I can't imagine a better portrayal of him than that. And the first question that came to mind just over the last couple of days, rewatching some clips and stuff, is did you know how you were going to play that character walking into the audition? Like, did you automatically put the accent on and all that, or was that a work in progress?
No, it's well, you're getting into the real guts of things now, because 2008, I was cast in an NBC pilot that was about a bunch of rookie cops called Blue Blood, not to be confused with Blue Bloods, which is another show.
Yeah.
And I was on hold for that. In 2008, there was a writer's strike. And not only did it sink this NBC pilot, but it sank a lot of other stuff. And it was like a really hard year to be an actor without a job. And I was walking around with my buddy who's an actor, and I was like, man, I gotta fucking get a job, man. I gotta work. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I said, I just got to keep myself busy. And, it's easy to kind of fall into a bit of a hole if you're not doing something. And I found a book on the street with him at like a stand, which was a book of children's stories, but it was written in like I think it was like 1915 or something. And it's called On Our Block. So I opened this book, and its pages are yellow and everything like that. And they've got these like crazy stories with like these twisted morals for kids, like children should be seen and not heard, and all these things, like no one likes a tattletale. And let me tell you the story of a tattletale. And I was like, what would be cool, man? I think I'm going to turn one of these things into a monologue, and I'm just going to shoot it. And he's like, cool, man. Yeah, do it. So I got a theater that was on 21st Street, rented it out for like 2 hours, and had a buddy of mine with a video camera shoot it. And I turned it into this thing. And it was a kind of a poetic story about, like, again, no one likes a tattletale and blah, blah, blah. And I'm drinking a glass of scotch. I'm in a 3-piece suit, and I make this tape. And I bring it to my agent. She's like, this is great, but what do you want me to do with it? I was like, I don't know. I just needed to make something, and I just wanted you to see it. She goes, okay, well, I'll keep it on the server here, and if something comes up, I'll let you know. So cut to like 9 months later, maybe a year later, I forget what the time frame was. I get a phone call. My agent goes, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? She goes, Terrence Winter and Martin Scorsese are making a show about a young Lucky Luciano and a young Al Capone and gangsters in Prohibition. And I sent his office that video you made. I said,
Yeah.
you're kidding. She goes, no. She goes, they loved it. They want you in the project. They don't know which role, but they want you in the project. So I was like, wow. Okay. So I read for a few different roles, and I read the Luciano role, which was, again, very vague. It was just like a page or two. And I read it unsure. And then I ended up getting Luciano. And of course, I had like this wealth of time. We weren't going to shoot for another 6 months or something. So all I did was just like, anything I can get my hands on, any book, any movie which he was portrayed, which I had seen numerous movies he was portrayed in. And I tried to like kind of, the one thing I thought about Luciano, he's portrayed with such glamour, and deservedly so. He's the Abe Lincoln as Joe Perino coined for me, by the way. He's the Abe Lincoln of the mafia. And I was like, yeah, it's a great point. You know, he is that guy. And he's been portrayed with such glamour that you kind of lose the authenticity of where he came from. So whether it's Peccato Freddi in Sicily, learning English by the age of 9, but then learning English on the streets of the Lower East Side, like not really going to school, not like sitting there at a grammar book. So, and then you start to hear accounts of other gangsters about how he sounded, how he came across. You know, I started to use my imagination to find my way into my own portrayal of him that I was hoping had a certain level of authenticity, honoring his kind of immigration experience. And what also was amazing about that process for me is my father's from Sicily. He came here in 1963. He's very heavily accented. He came over at 16. And it just kind of, even like, I was always close with my father, but it brought us even closer. I was just able to sit with him and talk to him and kind of learn a little bit more about his experience coming to the States. And it was a really, I don't know, that one was really special for me to do.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially hearing that. Now, did you know when you found out that you were going to be doing this? I always ask people this with The Sopranos. Did you know that this was going to be something big, or was it just like, you know, let me go for it and see what happens?
It had the smell of big. When you find out who's directing it and who's written it, and the kind of money HBO is putting into it. And I'll never forget the first table read, and I'm just kind of this guppy swimming with all these giant fish, you know, kind of looking around the room, and it's like there's Steve Buscemi, there's Michael Shannon, there's Michael Stuhlbarg, there's like, you know, Terrence Winter, Martin Scorsese, all these like, you know, incredible people with such presence. And then they kind of show you what the Boardwalk's going to look like, this incredibly expensive thing where they're going to recreate 1920s. So yeah, it was really, I knew I was, you know, really stepping into something that was life-changing for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't even imagine. I mean, what, you know, what's it like? I mean, considering the how elaborate the sets were and the wardrobe and all that, I mean, it had to be like you're going back in time almost. I mean, like a role for me, especially a role like that, for me being like kind of a mob history buff. I mean, I don't know. Were you like that? Were you kind of already a mob historian? Were you into that whole thing?
Well, growing up in Queens, I don't think you have a choice. You know, at least when in the 90s,
exactly.
Anyway, it was you know, the 80s and 90s. It was like, hey, you know who that guy is, and that guy's, you know, works for that guy, and you know, and look, Lucky Luciano's buried like behind my house in the cemetery. You know, like that was the other kind of like, it was like, who's buried back there? Harry Houdini and Lucky Luciano. Like, you know, these are like two of the famous grave sites in Queens, at least, you know, when I was growing up. So yeah, like it was hard not to know about them, and I knew who Lucky Luciano was. I'd seen him portrayed in other movies, but of course Al Capone's scene was more famous to me. But as I got to know Lucky Luciano, I was like, wow, this guy. I understand why there's no singular biopic about him, because his life is too vast and his story is too dense. Like you need a full miniseries to tell his story alone. Like you just can't fit it in a single movie. There's too much to tell.
Yeah, there really is. And that's what, you know, going back to what I was saying a minute ago, that's one of the things I was thinking yesterday about. You know, I'm also, you know, we're Italian kids from Queens, and to play a role like that is almost, you know, I would think it would be a dream come true, really, because it's legendary too. It's, first of all, you're playing Lucky Luciano, which is a major historical figure, but also it's in a series that, just like The Sopranos and The Wire and things like that, it's never going to die. I mean, that series, they'll be watching that 100 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, that was the hope. I mean, for me, I saw it was like one of the big steps into prestige dramas on cable. You know, Sopranos was like the grandfather, like the godfather of like that set loose the anti-hero stories on cable. But then there was like this next level, which kind of like Boardwalk then suddenly made it cool for big filmmakers to come and do TV. Like I felt like Scorsese kicked open the door to be like, no, it's not TV, it's long form. I love how he would always describe it. And then suddenly the big budgets, and then after that you had Mad Men. Or right around that time was Mad Men. They all started to kind of come out. Downton Abbey, a lot of period things, really expensive sets, really expensive costumes and wardrobe and set pieces. And to your point earlier, is like that was transportative. It's like I do all the work at home. You know, I close the books and I put on the suit, and you go through the hair, makeup, all the stuff that you do, and then suddenly you walk in set, and you're like, we're here. This is doing all the work. Yeah, it was really it was kind of an amazing experience.
I'm sure. And of course, me being me, I have to ask this question, just kind of like I asked about Jersey Boys with, getting the feel of what it's like being part of a rock group like that. You guys ever just go out to dinner, like after a scene, like, you got like Luciano, Lansky, like Capone, sit at a table and think, who the fuck you are? Like,
well, it was funny. I never had the balls to do that. Because it's definitely, I don't want to put that out to the world. But I definitely, because I wouldn't be able to back it up is the trouble. But definitely we'd go out. And what's interesting is Michael Stuhlbarg and I, and including Anatol Yusuf, who played Lansky, and Stuhlbarg played Rothstein, for those who may not to know. Fucking extraordinary actor. But in the research, we found out that these guys used to hang out at De Roberta's pastry shop, which was on First Avenue by 10th, 11th Street. I forget what it is now. I just know it was there. It closed, sadly. It broke my heart a few years ago. Became some other thing. But it was there for over 100 years. And we used to meet there, and we would work on our material sitting at a table, like, sipping coffee. And of course, Michael, staying true to Rothstein, was drinking a glass of milk. And we would just kind of go through our scenes and sometimes just sit quietly and think about what we had to do. But that was one of the cool things. And what made it even cooler is as the show came out, the owner of De Robertis was fourth generation or third or fourth generation Italian family. And he pulled me aside one day and he goes, he started telling me stories about when Luciano and Lansky used to come there as kids. And then as they grew in power, his grandfather would tell him that they made a deal to use his office upstairs. He goes, we were renovating the office upstairs a few years ago, and behind the wall, we found all these Sicilian gambling slips. And he gave me some of these Sicilian gambling slips, which I still have.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, they had stashed in the wall there. I learned a lot about that stuff. But yes, to that was a very long answer to your very simple question: is did we ever go out together? And we used to go out. Yeah, we'd go out to Keen's Steakhouse. I remember a bunch of dinners from that place. De Robertis Pastry Shop. A bunch of places.
See, I could see just getting stuck in that character for a little while. You know what I mean? Really feeling like you're Lucky Luciano while you're out here. Like, that's just me. But
well, yeah. I mean, certainly sometimes, you show up at a Starbucks and, I would put on the voice and it'd be like, yeah, can you give me an oatmeal latte or whatever, and just to see if it works on someone. And they would just be like, yeah, okay, let me get him this fucking latte. But yeah, it was not like I would go around and throw somebody over a car and demand their money or anything like that. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun to go out.
Yeah. And it's nothing for you to just put that accent back on, right? Like you could snap in and out of that.
Well, I mean, I just did it as a goof now, but it takes more work than that. Like just to try and like get into the, it's more complicated than that. But yeah, I mean, it's I could get back into it if the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, because it's very distinct. I mean, it's not just like, an average gangster accent or New York accent. You know what I mean? It's very distinct the way you did that. And I think that's one of the things that made your character stand out so much.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there was I read this. Oh God, I forget what book it was. But there was a book about an accent called the Mulberry Bend, and that was kind of the stuff you'd hear like grandparents I don't know, growing up in Glendale, you probably recognize them. People start calling it Earl instead of oil or a
Oh,
bottle.
absolutely. Yeah,
All that stuff.
absolutely.
That's the Mulberry Bend, and you had a lot of like great vaudevillians, guys like Jackie Gleason and Jimmy Durante, and all these guys had the Mulberry Bend. It was like the world and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of had to take the Mulberry Bend with a bit of a Sicilian American kind of thing, and see you put them in a blender, and that's what I came up with.
Yeah, well, the end result was fantastic. So what was it? What was it like? You had 5 years, right, on Boardwalk?
Yeah, 5 years.
So what was it like when that had to come to an end? Was it I mean, was it like, you knew you just did something great and you were going to move on to other great things, or was it a sad, like a sad time?
It was bittersweet, I think. I mean, that's a bit of a cliche, but I think bittersweet kind of pulls it together. I felt like there was, God, it was interesting. It was a kind of a year of finishing things. Like Jersey Boys had just come out, Wannabe was about to come out, the ending Boardwalk, shooting it, was just kind of finishing up. It felt like a real bit of, there was like a conclusion. It felt like the end of something for me. And then I just kind of spent a little bit of time, or a lot of time, processing what this chapter of my life was, and what to do next. Um, and then, yeah, there was part of it that was exciting. It's like finally take off that role and see what else is out there.
Yeah, and I'm sure you knew after a role like that you had a bright future ahead of you, because I believe you do.
Thanks, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, man. I was lucky. I worked on a bunch of, fun films. I was trying to be a little more thoughtful about, like, start to see if I can pick and choose, go after roles that I want a little bit more. Kind of also shake off, move a little bit away from the Italian American roles for a bit, and see if I can get a little more mainstream American roles, which I was lucky enough to do along the way. Now I'm stepping back into Italian American roles again. I'm just kind of like a fish, just kind of zipping around.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing though in a way, because you're not typecast all the time. There's some diversity to the roles you play.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that's kind of the thing, is not to the business is constantly trying to put you in a fucking box, and the
Yeah,
challenge is to, like, just step out of it. As soon as you feel it, like the lid going up, you got to jump out the other side and, like, go. And it's a painful price to pay, because it takes a while for people to acknowledge you could do other things,
yeah,
or that you did other things, and that, like, they just hadn't seen it. It's just very narrow, and in a way, I try and empathize. I understand when you're, like, looking at thousands of actors, you kind of almost categorically have to put them somewhere on your little pinboard. But it pisses me off. I just want to do other stuff.
yeah, absolutely. And that's in a second. I'm about to get to. I just want. I know I can't keep you forever, but I'd like to talk about Centigrade if we can. I just want to take
Yeah.
one question, if it's okay. Gunsmoke the Don. This is my boy right here. He wants to know, what is your favorite episode from Boardwalk Empire?
Oh man, it's like picking your favorite child. Um, Shit, Gunsmoke. Oh man, what was my favorite episode? I mean, I'm gonna. This is. I don't think this is a cheap way out. You tell me. Anytime I got to shoot at John's restaurant on East 12th Street, which was like a big mob hangout where, like, Joe the Boss Masseria would, like, hold court, and I got to
Yeah,
work with Ivo Nandi, who played Joe the Boss. Those were some of my favorite scenes, because when we would walk onto that set, like, because the restaurant, if you haven't been to John's, it is the restaurant that's been there as it's been for 100 years, where these guys actually spent time and did business. So whenever I got to have, like, a sit down scene at that restaurant, it
yeah,
really felt like, it felt different. It just felt like we were doing something, that was a bit, I don't want to get too flaky about it, but, like, there was a spirituality in it, that we were walking the same patch of earth, cutting deals, which these guys had done. It just felt different. It just felt imbued with something that I can't quite put a finger on.
Yeah, it brings authenticity to it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something.
that's awesome. And yeah, the guy that played Joe the Boss too, another one. Wow. Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Evo, man,
phenomenal.
Evo is he's a masterpiece of a human being. I mean, this fucking guy is like one of the greatest. He lives out in LA. He'd fly in to do this work, and he's just salt of the earth, the opposite of Joe the Boss, which just speaks to how good an actor he is. And we had a ball. He would always be down to meet up and kind of talk through our scenes and read through them, and and then get some drinks after shooting. And yeah, he's a great guy. Still a friend to this day.
Oh, that's good. That's good anytime I talk to actors who, seem to meet other actors and keep long-term friendships, that's kind of awesome, I think, to be able to work together and then, have some sort of a relationship outside of that.
Yeah.
So Centigrade, if we can get to that real quick.
Sure.
Listen, I watched that also yesterday. Okay, I had actually started it before, and I didn't wind up finishing it. I
just say
no.
You turned it off.
No, believe it or not, I did not hate it. I'll tell you this: it was hard to watch. Okay, especially for me, the scene with the baby. Baby, and when the baby's in the bag and the baby's crying, it's hard to watch. Now, I think that was another amazing role of yours, and I want to get into how challenging that must have been. But I'm not going to lie to you. Before I realized that it was a true story, and it's a very sad thing, one thought that came to mind is, oh my God, this poor guy. Not only is he stuck in the car and he's helpless and he's freezing to death, but he's got to put up with his nagging wife just bitching at him the whole time. I'm not going to lie to you, that I was like, oh, I felt for this guy.
If there was ever a movie for the pandemic, just throw a couple and circumstances, strap them in a house or in a car, and let them go at each other. Yeah, man, I that was like probably since The Wannabe. That was another movie where I was like, I got to make this little movie. My friend Molly Connors, she's a producer. She has a company, Fifen Pictures. She brought me the script and was like, I'm doing this little movie. There's really no money in it. It's all for love. Check out the story and see if you like it. And I met with Brendan Walsh, the director, and we just started kind of talking about how we can make this thing. And he had a vision that I thought was so cool. We only had 13 days to shoot the movie, which is like, it's stupid. Yeah, we had no time to make this movie. But the exciting thing about it is we could shoot it like a play because it all takes place in a car. So we could shoot it in the order of the movie. So his vision was he bought two 2002 Range Rovers that were identical, and he cut them different ways so he can move the camera through the car, and he parked them into Uncle Louis G's ice cream freezer in Staten Island. And
really,
there's this giant ice cream freezer that you can actually pull cars into, and it's completely temperature controlled to store the ice cream. And he was able to modulate the temperature of how cold we are, like how much breath he wanted in the scene. So we were really freezing our asses off, bundled up inside this car, and we shot for the 13 days. However, 12 days were inside the freezer, and we shot one day where the story took place in Norway. So we flew out to Oslo, drove 4 hours north, and we shot in where a little bit of movie trivia is where they shot the planet Hoth in Empire Strikes Back. That's how much snow was in this part of Norway. So just so we can get the exteriors of her walking around with the baby and stuff, and to see the car trapped where it was. Sort of. So yeah, man, it's another harrowing movie, but as an actor, it was like a dream to develop that kind of relationship on screen with Genesis Rodriguez, who played my wife in it. And then we shot it in order. So, they didn't have food. So it was like we were on a really specific diet of what we could eat. So that way, by the end of the movie, I have facial hair and I'm a lot thinner. Or she certainly lost so much weight in the process that it was like, it was a really cool kind of acting experience. And the story is sadly based on true events.
Yeah, it really is a shame. I didn't know that at first when I watched it, but you know, it is really sad that something like that can even take place. But that's why I assumed it was probably an important role to you because watching it, you know, you could see this man in true despair, and as a man, any man watching that would almost feel his pain because he's got his pregnant wife and he's helpless. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, the man always wants to be the protector, but you're in a situation where you can't do anything.
The only thing you could do to protect is to offer your best advice. And it's like, just wait. Someone will find us. We're on the side of a road. Don't break the window. You know, and that's a funny thing too, because I have friends and even my brother. We would talk about the experience. He'd be like, "Well, you know, I love when people opine. It's like I'd kick the fucking window out," and it's like, "Well," or I'd pop through the sunroof, you know, and then get out that way. And it's like, yeah, but if there's that much snow on the ground and that you're on a road, you're dead from hypothermia in a few hours because you're exposed to the elements. So, or do you just wait it out, knowing that there's a chance that the plow's going to come by and kind of, you know, find you, or you know, you don't know how bad your circumstances are, so you're better off just staying put. So anyway, it created this great debate. Even on set, we would debate it. You know, the crew and the cast, we would always just kind of like kick around other alternatives to the story, and yeah, it was, you know, he had a point of view. He tried to protect his family with it. So I don't want to give away the spoilers in case anyone wants to see it, but you'll see who it worked out for and who it didn't. I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was another good one. I think that's it as far as your past roles. I wanted to ask you, of course, if you have anything upcoming, anything. I know certain things you can't speak about, but you know, whatever you could tell us, if you can tell us anything.
Yeah. I got let's see. What I did this really fun thing that during the pandemic with Colin Quinn, which is in post production now, and that's something that you know, hopefully gets the light of day in the coming months, which is fun. It's kind of a retrospective of building trades in the 1970s. So I play an electrician that kind of goes directly to camera and tells you a little bit about his life with gripes and grievances, which are always
Okay.
fun. And then, which I worked on with Colin and the incredible, I have to give her a shout out, is Catherine Narducci. She's amazing in this thing. She has her own one where she plays the manager of a construction office. She's outstanding in it. So I'm excited for everyone to see what she does with it. And then I'm doing this Tulsa King, which is a new series for Paramount Plus, which we just started work on about a month and a half ago. Well, about a month ago now, and I can't really say anything about that. My lips are sealed, but I think it's going to be a crowd pleaser. Fun group of people, and yeah, getting to work with a lot of familiar faces, and you guys will have to just wait and see what that's all about.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure my audience as well. And I'll tell you what. Speaking of Catherine Narducci, I think she has a large fan base in my audience. I'll just say that she's
Yeah.
another legend as far as I'm concerned.
Legend. What an actress. What an artist. I mean, you know, we had worked together on Jersey Boys, and then to get to work with her again on this, and just yeah, she's incredible. Did you see her recently, by the way, in the new season of Euphoria? She is like in one of the early episodes. She's in the opening 12 minutes, like giving backstory of one of the main characters. I never watched the show, but I watched it for her. Oh my god!
No.
I mean, she set the screen on fire. She was unbelievable
Really?
in how she played this role. Check it out in Euphoria. She was unbelievable.
Yeah, I never actually saw that, but I believe Jamie Lynn Sigler's in that too, right?
I don't know. I only watched the show to catch her stuff.
Okay.
And she had this beginning piece. I watched a little bit of it. I didn't get into the show, unfortunately. I have commitment issues with series. But yeah, I mean, that's great if she is. I didn't realize she's working on that.
Yeah, I think Robert mentioned it, but yeah, I'll definitely. I didn't know that. I'll definitely check out Catherine's part. I am a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of
Oh
Catherine
man,
Narducci.
you'll be a bigger fan after this. I promise. So
Yeah,
some
yeah. I'm looking
badass,
forward to
badass stuff
seeing
she
it.
was doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know I can't keep you on forever, and I had to, of course, in the beginning, in order to talk about, some of your more recent roles. If I had all the time in the world with you, Vince, I'd love to talk about all of your acting roles one by one, but obviously we can't do that. Is there anything I left out that you'd like to talk about? Any roles or anything?
No, man, you brought me down memory lane. I appreciate it. It was nice to think about some of these things. But yeah, man, thanks so much for having me on, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, man.
Oh, bro, you have no idea how much I appreciate this. I'm very grateful. Uh, you know, um, it couldn't have gone better as far as I'm concerned. And I just want to thank you again. And I want to say, I appreciate you being here. This
No,
this was a wonderful experience for me.
anytime, man. Serious. And on the other side of Tulsa King, I'm happy to jump back on and talk about that if the show is of interest to you. It is very much about New York gangsters. Um, yeah, that's about as far as I can go with it. So there's a lot of New York
Yeah,
gangster presence.
yeah, and yes, we have to keep in contact about that other thing too.
Oh man, yes, yes. The other thing that's going to
Yeah,
be
that
yeah,
thing.
to be continued. To be continued. Yeah,
Yeah, I've
for
been
sure.
looking into that, and wow, looks interesting. One
Yeah,
favor I'll ask you. I'm going to get in
right on
big
me.
trouble tonight if I don't ask. Can you just give my beautiful wife Shanna a shout out?
Shauna, how do you say
Shanna,
it?
yep.
Shanna,
Shanna,
Shanna.
yep.
Your husband. I mean, come on, what a gem. Happy to send a shout out to you. I don't know what to say, but nice to meet you.
That
Sort of.
that's that's more than enough,
Uh,
Vince. Thank you so much. I would have gotten in big
anytime.
trouble otherwise. She's a fan of
Nah.
yours, and yeah, and she never watched Boardwalk, but she saw a clip I played her yesterday with you and Steve Buscemi, and she loves the movie Con Air, and she's a big Steve
Oh
Buscemi fan.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
she brought that up to me. But listen,
Absolutely.
again, yeah, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for this, Vince. I appreciate you. You're a great guy, and like I said, I hope we keep in contact and speak in the future.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, man. Good luck with everything, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Take care, man. Bye.
Bye. Yep. Ah, excellent. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Vince, as you could tell, is a great guy, down to earth. Um, you know, just a legendary actor already, as far as I'm concerned. Roles like Jersey Boys and Boardwalk Empire and The Wannabe to me are they're going to live on forever. So I truly am grateful to Vincent for that, and I hope all you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Let me take some quick comments. Mr. H, $5. Wow, Vincent Piazza, absolutely brilliant actor. Congrats, FBS. I'm working now, but I'll watch the whole thing back tonight. Thank you, Vince. Vince, Mr. H. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you for putting that up, Miss Can't Be Wrong. Mikhail1 says, great interview, FBS. Thank you. I hope I did well. Listen, I'm no seasoned interviewer. I do my best. And trust me, the whole time I'm thinking, I hope this didn't, I hope I didn't fuck this up. And I hope Vince leaves with a good impression of me. Who knows? But all I can do on these interviews is my best. And I hope I did well today. So Lecture Kool-Aid say, great interview. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I know I'm way up in the comments, but I'll get down here. Smoking a cigar with a drum of a what is that? I don't know. I'm not sophisticated enough. Of bourbon, enjoying this great interview. Well, thank you. I am going to smoke a sin compromiso once I click off here and I'm done. You can guarantee it. It's a celebratory cigar. After Vince just gave me such a great interview. Sherman said, excellent show, FBS. Thank you. Lisa Farrow said, great interview. Thank you so much. Miss Can't Be Wrong said, Vincent, thank you and much luck on future endeavors. Well, hopefully he's still watching and he sees these. Stu Gotts, FBS and Vince, great show. Be proud. Pleasure. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, guys. I appreciate all the positive comments. You guys already know. I'll give you my spiel again. These interviews mean the world to me, okay? Because these are the actors that that I admire and that I, in some cases grew up watching. And, in Vince's case, I've been a huge fan of his for years. And I'm honored to do these. And as far as I'm concerned, this, like I said, this is a kind of a legacy I'm leaving behind with these interviews. So, as with every guest, I couldn't be more grateful because who am I? And it goes to show you, how great these guys are. Like Vincent, for example, and Robert Eiler and Joe Perino and all these guys, they, they're willing to do these interviews out of the kindness of their heart. They're not getting anything out of it. And they're doing them for a relative, basically a nobody. Okay. So it means the world to me. It means the world to me. And I'm, what can I say? And I also want to shout out Joe Perino and thank him. Joe, you're a hell of a guy. And if it wasn't for Joe, this interview wouldn't have happened. Joe was able to reach out to Vince for me. And me and Vincent got in contact and we spoke a couple of times, emailed back and forth for a couple of months, actually. And we were finally able to get it done today. So thank you, Joe Perino. I'm quite sure you're not watching, but I want to shout you out and thank you anyway. Mustache Pete said, good show, homie. Thank you, bro. Otis Driftwood said, awesome interview. Thank you, man. Sis said, congrats. And thank you, sis. I got the second box of books yesterday, and you sent some great ones. Thank you. Lisa Farrow, excellent. Thank you, Miss McGinnis. Thank all you guys for that. Because like I said, these shows, these interviews are what mean the most to me on my channel. They really do. Miss McGinnis said, best interview yet. Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Angelo and War said, you did great. Thank you, guys. You guys are the best, man. Thank you for all the positivity. Live and Let Live said you did fantastic. Thank you, my friend. All right, Michael, $9.99. Always kill these interviews. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that very much from you. Sis, $20. Excellent interview. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the support. It means a lot. And yeah, hopefully I'll go hopefully someday I'll be able to have Vincent back on. I'd be glad to. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe in the future I will. FBS, go love your wife. Celebrate. Oh, I'm going to. I'm definitely going to. Let's see what else we got. I'll take a few more comments and then I'm going to end this one before I do something to fuck it all up. Steve Cutler said FBS is a gem and a gentleman. Thank you, bro. That means a lot to me. Mob Entertainment Group said it's been a good week. Thank you, JC. And bro, you were spot on with some of your comments on Tony Soflo's show earlier, but we'll get that to another time. And I give you props, bro, for being one of the good people that stands up against what's going on and speaks out. So, I hear you, Otis. Thank you, man. So listen, guys, I'm out of here for now. I might come back on tonight and talk about current events. Who knows? I'm not really sure yet. We'll see how the day goes. But I want to thank you guys once again. Thank Vincent Piazza. Thank Joe Perino for helping to put this together. And thank you guys for being here to support me. It means the world to me. All right, guys. I'll see you next time. I love you all. And until then, salute.